I have a hardwood safe filled with cursed VHS tapes that are never to be watched by anyone, ever, only because I have watched them and have faced and/or witnessed the consequences. This post is a warning for the following VHS tape, known as Traveling Up the Pipeline. To my knowledge, there is only one copy known to exist. Just in case someone finds another one, read this. I will go over what is on the tape, how dangerous it is, and basic containment of said tape. But first, quick lesson. There are 5 levels of danger when it comes to tapes. Level 1. Safe. Can watch as many times as you'd like. Tapes like this typically change upon repeated viewings. Level 2. Be cautious. Suggested not to watch. Tapes like this can have an effect on the mind or body. Length of time affected varies, but typically lasts no more than a month. Level 3. Dangerous. Do not watch. Tapes like this will usually end in permanent damage to the mind, body, or soul, or personal public property. Level 4. Extremely dangerous. Absolutely do not watch. Tapes like this have a high chance to kill the viewer and/or destroy things around it. The tape in the ring is a good example. Level 5. Contain or destroy. Watching will lead to more than just death. Tapes like this typically contain entities that will try to do as much damage as possible to whatever they can and try to spread this chaos to everything. The name of this tape is called Traveling Up the Pipeline. It's a blank Sony tape with the title written in pen on the front, and it has no case. The runtime is 85 minutes. Keep it in a secure wooden box with no metal hinges. Metal amplifies whatever energy is contained on the tape. Finally, it has a danger level of 3. I acquired this tape from a hole-in-the-wall antique store that was packed floor to ceiling with things. The owner looked older than Jesus and seemed like he could drop at any moment, but he sold me the tape for $1, so I'm not complaining. I thought the tape was cursed based on the title and feeling of the weight. Cursed tapes tend to feel heavier without actually being heavier. The weight of whatever was captured put on the tape can sometimes make it feel heavier. Also, if you feel a general uneasiness from looking or being near a tape, there's a good chance it's cursed. Anyway, I bought it and took it home. When watching potentially cursed VHS tapes, I always have a friend with me and a friend outside the room who checks in every 5 minutes by knocking. If we don't answer, he goes to the breaker and cuts the power. The tape itself starts off with a dirty and disheveled man wearing splunking gear. There's a timestamp at the bottom right corner from March 12, 1993. The man speaks into the video camera, talking about how he has been stuck in whatever cave he's in for the past 3 days and that he keeps hearing noises that don't sound human. There's also some sort of mount on the side of his helmet. The image then cuts to the mount and the man is moving through the cave system. However, the system is anything but normal. The rock walls are slimy with splotches of pulsating purple patches the man continuously comments about, saying he doesn't know what they are but that they don't seem harmful and they are warm to the touch. There are also no stalactites or stalagmites in the cave, just a bunch of weird bumps. The man doesn't have a flashlight, but there are red crystals that have some sort of luminescence. Suddenly, there's a large moaning sound coming from behind the man as the whole cave shakes for a few seconds. The man's breathing becomes more frantic as he begins to pick up his pace in the cave. The video cuts to black for a second before the man is back into frame, holding the camera. He lifts it up, showing that he's hiding behind a rock of some sort, before holding it over the rock and pointing it at a couple bipedal creatures that are out of focus. It tries to focus, but it can't quite make it, giving only a brief glimpse of what the creature looks like. The best my friend and I could make out was a short humanoid with reversed knees, like an ostrich. No hair anywhere, large mouths with no lips, 2 small eyes, which may have been nostrils, and stubby arms. There were 5 of them, and they were drinking from a small pool of yellowish liquid. The camera then cuts again to black, before going to another shot of the man walking through the cave. The purple spots are a little more prevalent now on the walls, and the man speculates the creatures he saw earlier could have come from them somehow. Sometime later, after climbing up a steep incline, the man comes across the giant underground lake of that same yellowish liquid the creatures were drinking before. The liquid is bubbling this time, and the man comments on how he's very hot and he thinks it's an underground hot spring. Suddenly, the entire cavern shakes and he slips into the edge of the lake. There's a loud sizzling sound as he struggles to get out of the liquid, But he makes it out and tries to wipe the liquid off of his pants. He manages to get dry enough for it to stop burning, but then realizes that the liquid has burned holes in his pants and gloves. The man takes a minute to sit on the shore, away from the water, possibly to think, but he does not state why. The camera pans over the lake, just in time to see a gigantic off-white serpent of some sort surface for a moment before it goes back underneath. The man utters the words, "What the fuck?" before he gets up and turns the camera off. After another second of black screen, the camera turns back on to a shot of him looking very distressed. He says that he had found another cave on the other side of the lake, then pans over to what he was sitting on, what was now the far side of the lake. In that same shot, the off-white serpent surfaces out of the liquid and goes back under. The man then pans the camera back to him and talks about how he thinks this might finally be the way out, before showing a much smaller cave that goes up another steep incline. Inside, the walls were becoming more purple than rock. The camera then cuts to black again before coming back to show that the cave is now much smaller and the man has to crouch to fit through it. It was at this point that the friend who was watching the tape with me complained about a weird feeling in her stomach. The man in the video comments on how he thought he heard another voice. Then, the sound of those weird humanoid things from earlier can be heard far behind him. The man begins to panic as he moves faster up the tunnel. The walls, at this point, are completely purple and are pulsating more regularly. My watch partner started to feel more nauseous and suggested we take a break from watching, so I went to stop the video, but the VCR wouldn't turn off. At that point, I yelled at my friend outside the room to turn the power off. A few seconds later, the room went dark, but the TV and VCR remained on. The man at this point was crawling on his stomach through the ever-tightening tunnel, as my watch partner was on the ground with her stomach convulsing in her hand over her mouth. The sound of those humanoids slowly grew louder as the man began panicking and moving faster up the tunnel. My partner began dry heaving. Suddenly, a gloved hand reached out of her mouth and began waving wildly. I wasn't sure what to do at first, but my first instinct was to grab the hand and begin to pull. I yelled for my friend outside to get in the room. When he did, his eyes went wide as he stood at the doorway, frozen. I told him to quit standing there and to get the TV off. By this point, both of the man's arms were coming out of her mouth, and I could hear the man yelling from inside. My friend finally ran over to the TV and unplugged it, but I could still hear the video going. I looked into my watch partner's eyes and only saw tears as she looked at the man's arms, then back up to me in horror. Her skin was getting paler as her mouth stretched further, letting the man's head finally come out. The man looked around. I could tell he was confused, but his main focus was to get out. He yelled at me to keep pulling and said that something was pulling on his legs. My friend behind me said he couldn't get the video to stop, so I yelled at him to come over and help me pull. He grabbed the other man's hand and we pulled together, but the man was suddenly jerked back and he yelled at us to pull harder. In one swift motion, the man was yanked back into her throat and our arms were pulled in too. The three of us looking at each other in panic, my friend screaming, my watch partner trying to push us away, and me still trying to pull the man out. I heard the man suddenly yell at us to keep pulling because he had a plan. A couple seconds later, my friend and I were launched back, pulling the now slimy man out onto the ground, his shoes missing. The man quickly got up and looked around before looking at the TV, realizing that his own camera footage was being shown through it. My watch partner was knocked onto the ground when he flew out. She was still dry heaving and I could hear the sounds of those humanoid things coming from her mouth. We all could. I looked up at the man, not knowing what to do until my watch partner said to turn off the camera in between her stomach convulsions. The man fumbled to get the camera off of his helmet, but got it off nonetheless and pressed the power button. The TV suddenly went dark, and I heard my watch partner throw up. I took my phone out to use as a flashlight while my friend went to turn the power back on. I looked around the room for a moment and the man was nowhere to be seen. When the power turned back on, the camera was sitting on the ground where the man was standing. Beyond that was my watch partner, who sat hunched over, holding her stomach. In front of her was a pile of stomach acid with a long white tapeworm writhing around in it.